with clarification on a WWE executive taking a leave of absence and more. This is Wrestling Rambles. My name is John, and you're watching the Wrestling Report. For information on the venue for AEW's Forbidden Door event next year, Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful said, "I believe it's O2 Arena. They are not planning Wembley. The Coldplay Tour pushed them out of Wembley for next year, which I think is a good idea." Providing his thoughts on the new WWE ID program for recruiting independent talent, Eric Bischoff noted on his 83 Weeks podcast, "Here's the downside, and you've already touched on it, and you've experienced it already. You're going to get talent, you're going to get wrestlers who are working the indie scene, but they can't take a loss because WWE's looking at me. I'm kind of connected here a little bit, so I've got to be a little careful about my finishes." Whether that's true or not, guys will say it. Of course, it's true in their minds, so out it will come, and they make themselves believe it. Like, if they go to a school that's got the WWE ID and their trainer knows Terry Taylor and talks to him twice a week, they'll start thinking, maybe I've got a shot here, so I can't go out there and do a job for that guy. Maybe a run-in or whatever, but not that. That's going to be rough because that kind of stuff ruins it. It quits being collaborative and starts being selfish. Not that it doesn't exist anyway, that's natural to a degree, but when you add this layer of work into it, because that's what it's going to be, work, it's going to make it a lot harder on independent producers. Revealing a character that Vince McMahon had in mind for him in WWE, Matt Hardy said this on his Extreme Life podcast. "Whenever they split Jeff and I in 2002, and I started doing Matt Hardy version 1, the sensei of Mattitude, whenever I first started coming out and I used the Hardy Boys music until they got me new music, which ended up being the Monster Magnet theme, Live for the Moment, I was still getting strong reactions. I still think at that time, WWE just didn't fully grasp how popular we were together because Vince McMahon saw Jeff as the popularity of the team, but we're at our strongest when we're together. There was a pitch because Paul Heyman was also in creative too, where he wanted me to join Chavo and change my name where I was no longer going to be Matt Hardy and have some other name, maybe even like a more Hispanic based name or something else, be something completely different. So I had a totally different identity, and I was like shaming that I used to be a Hardy. I didn't want to do that. It probably would have garnered the desired effect, but I was also thinking big picture, like, hold up, I'm Matt Hardy, and there's a lot of equity in this name, and plus it's my real name. I do want to keep that because I got that at this point." I ended up pitching the whole Matt Hardy version 1 thing. Once I started doing promos and I was super delusional over the top, Vince actually fell in love with it. You can tell that because he had me beat The Undertaker. I got to pin The Undertaker one time. Vince told him, "Look, this guy is going to pin you because we're trying to build him." Mentioning his now iconic photo with Stone Cold Steve Austin when he was younger, CM Punk told the No Contest Wrestling podcast, "I'm a smart wrestling fan, proudly wrestling in backyards and gaining a reputation in the Chicagoland area. All the wrestlers would stay at the Clarion Hotel next to Rosemont Horizon, which is the All-State Arena now. I think we dipped in there. Steve saw me and he's like, 'Hey kid, can I get a picture with you?' I'm just kidding. Me and my friends were just a bunch of dumb kids. Oh, the wrestlers hang out here? Let's go hang out with wrestlers. We're ordering pizza. Come get pizza. Wrestlers are like, free pizza. We're delighted to just be rubbing elbows with these guys." There are probably a million other pictures from that day, but the me and Steve Austin one has become famous. When it comes to the status of an independent pro wrestling talent with AEW, Ringside News wrote that while speaking on Fightful Select's Q&A podcast, Sean Ross Sapp was asked about Michael Oku's status with AEW. Sapp reported that AEW has been keeping an eye on Michael Oku, with Tony Khan expressing interest in him. AEW brings Oku in when they are overseas, but as of now, he is not signed to the company and there are no immediate plans for him to be. At the moment, Michael Oku is still actively working in the UK. They have had their eyes on him and Tony Khan has said that he likes Oku. They bring him in when they're overseas. However, he's not signed and we haven't heard that he's going to be imminently. He's still working in the UK. Recalling his Smackdown segment with The Rock from September 15th of 2023, Austin Theory said this to Chris Van Vliet. So the day starts. I have nothing that day at Smackdown. I'm kind of lingering around wondering, am I doing anything? I haven't heard anything. Was it a setup? I don't know. It didn't feel like one, but if it was, then wow, you got me. But I remember we have an hour before the show kicks off. So we were in Colorado, so the time is probably like a couple of hours back. So we had an hour before the show. I get a call and I end up going to Triple H's office and he basically gives me the rundown of, hey, Pat McAfee's coming back. We're thinking you go out there, you cut a promo and then kind of get on him and then we'll have The Rock come out. I'm just like, for real? All right. So then they're sitting there and then the head writer, he's like, hey, there's not a lot of time left now. There's like 40 minutes, 30 minutes left. Go figure out what you want to say to Pat and then we'll figure out the rest. We'll tell you what you're doing with Rock when he gets here. So I'm like, well, he's not even here. This is crazy. So I go away and I started thinking in my head. I started thinking too about the last time I was in the ring with Pat McAfee and how the promos were. I remember he said some things that I could only say what I was able to say, but I feel like there was some more freedom there for him. So in my mind, I'm like, well, this is where I've got to take it. I've got to get it back. So going out there, we had the same outfit on. So I ripped in him about that. You don't look like me in a tank top. I called him something and then Rock comes out. Before Rock comes out, kind of going back to when I met Rock, I remember I came up with what I wanted to say on Pat. I was like, okay, I got it. And then I just get a text, come inside. I come inside and it was one of the writers and he said, come with me. And then next thing I know, I'm with Triple H and Nick Khan and we're all walking outside. The buses are there and this black car pulls up. 6 people get out. It's just insane to me. Rock gets out and I'm like, this is crazy. He's the size of a blimp. He looks insane. I'm like, what is going on? They walk over. I think they're just trying to get us on a bus so this could be private and nobody sees Rock. I think Nick Khan knocks on Charlotte Flair's bus and they're like, hey, can you get off? She's like, all right. So she just gets off and then we get on the bus. Then I just remember I was in the back of the bus with The Rock and he was kind of telling me, when we get out there, it's going to be magic. Just feel it. It's going to be good. And I kid you not, being out there with him, he did like these Jedi mind tricks with his eyes. When I just knew when to go, when to say something, and just feeling it with him. He would just, I don't know, just with his eyes. I was like, oh man. But it was such an experience and I just felt so on top of my game. Touching on his plans to revive a podcast, former WWE and current AEW star MVP wrote this on X. When I reinstate my podcast, I will very clearly and precisely explain to you the who, the why, and the when. I think you'll be surprised at the truth I have to tell. Sticking with MVP, this was said regarding him leaving WWE recently, as Ringside News wrote that in a recent interview with Drop the Heat, MVP laid it out straight. This time, I didn't want to re-sign, and I let it be known that I wasn't going to re-sign because the new management in place, anytime, I don't care where you work. When new management comes in, it's good for some people and not for other people, he said. MVP added with a laugh, new people come in, old people go. So I just felt that it was definitely time to go because the new management just wasn't for me and I ain't for him. with it said that Bruce Prichard would be taking time away from WWE in his role as executive director. An update was provided by Conrad Thompson on Something to Wrestle. I just want to address the elephant in the room. There's been a lot of rumor and innuendo about Bruce Prichard. Just to clear it up, Bruce Prichard is still with WWE. Bruce Prichard is not quitting his podcast, but if you're a longtime listener of this show, you know that there have been health events in the Prichard family and household, and right now, Bruce is going to take a little bit of a leave of absence from WWE, and he's going to be away, taking care of what's really important. Asked about a possible tag team match at SummerSlam against Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion, Liv Morgan said this to Billboard prior to Raw. Can you imagine? Well, Raquel and I are going to beat Jade and Bianca for those tag team titles. So we'll head to WrestleMania and I'll be your women's world champion, your women's crown jewel champion, and half of your women's tag team champions. That offer still stands for them if they want a shot at our newly crowned championships. I'd love to beat them in my hometown. And this was your pro wrestling news update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all later.